So what's going on, Andrew? Nice to meet you, buddy.
Nice to meet you as well. Thank you for taking the time today to meet with me and go over some real estate stuff.
Yeah, I hear nothing but good things about you.
Well, I appreciate that. It's good to hear.
So you're thinking about getting into real estate?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very interested in the topic of real estate, I'd say for the past year now. It started with me just learning more about what real estate investing is and how that works. That's something that I had really never considered before about this time a year ago. But I started kind of just diving into it, listening to podcasts, reading a couple books, just because it really interested me. And like, I like how it's a tangible asset compared to like, if you have stocks or anything like that. I feel like with real estate, you're kind of more in control, which I thought was cool. And I've also seen just hundreds of different things that you can do in real estate to make money, to grow your net worth, to have some long-term wealth created from real estate. So all that really intrigued and interested me. And I've kind of just been learning about real estate from an investing standpoint, but then also I've been kind of doing some research about the different careers that are in real estate and seeing if some of those would potentially interest me in the future.
What books have you been reading?
I've only read a few books. I've read the rental property investing, the book on that from Brandon Turner, and then not real estate related necessarily, but kind of business mindset. I've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I've read The One Thing. Those are the main ones that come to the top of my head.
They're good ones. Brandon's done a great job too. You, I guess you're following the Bigger Pockets podcast as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's probably made a lot of millionaires out there through
definitely
educating investors. What are you doing now? I mean, what kind of industry are you in? Are you in supply chain?
Yep. So I went to college studying supply chain, and right now I'm doing that. And I'm kind of doing the logistics for a big national retailer, making sure that their product is getting on the shelves and, replenishment and just doing different things with that.
So when you say that you're thinking about, you're exploring the different career options, are you thinking about actually going into real estate full time?
Yeah, I have considered that. I obviously want to educate myself as much as I can on something like that before I made a big change. But it's definitely something that I've looked into.
Real estate has been my career. I mean, the last 32 years from one aspect, or another. I started out as a contractor and progressed into becoming a licensed agent. And now I'm a real estate broker. And all the while over the last, I'd say 25 plus years, I've been buying properties and investing myself for both passive purposes, rental properties and cash flow, and then also flips. So I've done quite a bit of house flips and then land development. I mean, there's a lot of different ways of making money in real estate, and I guess when you're in it long enough, you explore it. Those, other options other than what you just typically think about, like having a rental property or flipping a property, buying a distressed property and fixing it up and selling it. When you're in the business long enough, you sort of look for all kinds of different ways to make money, because at various times the economy, what happens, ups and downs of the economy, and just over time, some things become more difficult. And you have to really start fishing for those other opportunities. So let's just dive in, man, and start, fire your questions away.
All right. That sounds good. Well, yeah, I guess just coming from someone who's just at the very beginning of all of this and, seeing someone like you who, like you said, you have your own brokerage, you're a real estate investor, and you've done development. You just said that you started as a contractor, but what kind of led you to get into that first role in real estate? And then from there, kind of what was the thing that triggered you to go to that next thing in real estate?
So, I didn't go to college. So, when I was a young guy in high school, I wanted to go into the military. That was sort of like my path. So, I was kind of set to go into the Marine Corps. I come from a military background. So I had a lot of influence, military influence in my life. And since, I really didn't have a path to go to college and I wasn't very academic, I was being really encouraged to take on a military lifestyle because, basically it's all laid out for you. You can, you join and then you pick your field and you kind of follow that path. And, it's a great course for many. But my grandmother got sick when I was, young in high school, and I lived with her. She was like my mom. So I kind of tabled that while I took care of her, and she ended up passing away. I had already started contracting. So I started working with my hands, as a laborer, started doing things in the neighborhood, like cutting lawns, when I was young, and sort of doing landscaping. And then I started working for builders, doing landscaping and grading and excavating and whatever I could do. And one thing kind of led to the next, and I started doing construction projects. So it was sort of like the progression and watching other people, from being in the field working. I had taken wood shop in school. We had shop classes. So I had an opportunity to, build things in class. And we ended up building, my senior year of high school, we ended up building a shed for my wood shop teacher, a really big shed. And we did it like a panelized house. We built it in the wood shop, framed the walls and, sheathed the walls and made it in, partitions. And then we took those partitions out on a trailer and assembled it at his house on like a field trip. So I knew that it really interests me, working with my hands was something that was really fun. And starting out, literally digging in the dirt and at ground level and kind of building my way and making a career out of that made an easy transition for me to go into home construction. And, it may have turned out the same way if I had gone to college. I still may have, because I always work with my hands. I enjoyed doing it as a kid, building things, from Legos, really from rudimentary as something like that. And but I always kept myself busy with creating things. And, and I like to look at the end result. For me, it wasn't just about building it, but it was about the satisfaction that I got when I looked at what I did. When I built it, it was like, wow, I did this. I could see it. I could put my hands on it. It wasn't like you just turned it over to somebody else and you didn't know what that finished product was. Like in a lot of jobs, you work on one component and you ended up passing that component on to somebody else, and you may not even really know what the end product is. Right. But for me, it was nice being able to develop that product and actually see it finished.
Yeah, I'm similar to you in the fact that I really enjoy working with my hands and building things, even though I've never really taken that on as like a career path until I've more recently started thinking about something like that. But yeah, like you said, Legos or just building something like a fort in the backyard. I've always enjoyed doing stuff like that.
Same.
Okay, so then you went into kind of home building and you spent a couple of years doing that. And then what was the next step for you? You said you became an agent after that?
Yeah. So, I started doing flips, flipping properties, buying distressed properties. And when I say distressed property and how I started out in flipping, it really wasn't distressed property that I was buying. I was buying just houses that weren't updated. We think of flipping as like, I'm going to buy this house that somebody trashed. Right. They haven't paid their mortgage and it was foreclosed on. And right. I'm going to walk in and like these videos and look and like, oh my gosh, rats are running around. A lot of it's true, but a lot of it's entertainment. But I never had that to go by. So when I bought a house, I knew that I could fix it up. Mm-hmm. I knew that I had friends that were in the trades. And when I looked for a house, I didn't look for a steal or, something that was completely trashed. I looked for things that just were standard sale. A seller was selling it, moving on, but they just hadn't done much to the property in the last 20 years, the last 30 years. The kitchen's 25 years old. and, the floor plan's not really that good. And I would go in and just upgrade it, open it up where I could, do the kitchens and baths and flooring and paint and things like that. A lot of it that I could do myself. And that was kind of how I started getting into the flipping side of things. Now, I've bought the ones that are, believe me, that you have to tear down. I've certainly done my share of that. But then I started realizing that, from that point on, that I could build. It was like I was buying these houses and I was spending so much time and energy trying to fix something that was wrong, that was outdated, that I realized, what? I mean, how about if I just bring it out of the ground and not have to tear anything apart before I put it back together again? And I don't have any surprises that way. So then I went through a period where, it was really a hot time to build speculation houses, which right now is a good time because there's very limited inventory, and you'd actually build a house completely without a buyer and hope to God that a buyer came along when you were done, because you were all out of money, right? You spent all your money. And, I just happened to do that in the right time where, things were hot and things sold quickly. And then I kind of transitioned back into flipping properties again, because again, the change of the cycles of, what's hot now. And sometime in that period, I realized that I wanted to hold on to some of the inventory that I was selling, because I realized, when I bought it and I sold it, I was out of money, right? So I had money, but now I don't have anything else coming in. So until I bought something again. So then I started to realize, hey, let's try and hold on to some of these things and rent them and keep them and let them appreciate. So, that was kind of like the path that I took, went from contracting to rehabbing to building to rehabbing, and then really started bringing in the rental portfolio into the mix. And I guess in 2005, I actually became a licensed agent. So I started my business in 1989. It was a long time ago, 32 years ago, as a contractor. I did not get my real estate license until 2005. So that's almost a career, right, in itself, from 89 to 2005. I wish I would have gotten my license earlier. And I say that purely because from an educational standpoint. So, I wasn't really academic with things that I didn't like, but I'm very academic with things that I love. And so when I realized how much I love the real estate business, I realized, even though flipping or building is an education and it's a great trade and it's a great skill to have, there's a whole nother business side to it. Right. That the real estate education of becoming a licensed agent gives you, that I kind of wish I had sooner, because if you epitomize that education, it's going to take it even further past just being a licensee. It's actually going to help you dive into the market analysis and the financial analysis, which are the things that I didn't gain as a contractor. I knew the cost of 2x4s. Right. I knew what I could put a heating and air system in a place for, which is important. You need that if you're rehabbing. But I didn't know the comparable side. How much can I actually sell it for when I'm done? What kind of activity is going on in the neighborhood?
Right. At first, you were kind of just, in a way, flying blind, because, I guess you didn't really, probably weren't, analyzing the deals and, running the numbers and seeing, if I kept this as a rental, what would my, return be, anything like that. Well, by the time I got to the rental side, I knew that I knew the financial aspect of it pretty well. But when I first started building and renovating, I had no idea. I mean, I was doing it, but I knew what saved me, Andrew, was the fact that I was doing the work. So, I wasn't paying somebody else. So I made money just because the price of what I did it for is where I profited. I didn't necessarily profit on the sales side or,
the buy side. Like I may have been
Right.
able to buy it a lot better than I bought,
Mhm.
but because I was doing the work myself, I was able to still profit, you know, from the construction side of it.
Right. So you weren't really making money because you secured a good deal. It was really just the work that you put in, the labor, and then the materials that you put into the home to renovate it.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, correct. It wasn't, where you want the deal to be on the buy too.
Mhm.
Or, you want, and a lot of people, and I'll just clarify that too, because a lot of people will say, well, your money, your profits on the purchase. That is true to a point.
Mhm.
Now you can't really say that because it's so competitive and everything's overpriced, or it appears to be overpriced. We don't know what the future is going to hold. We might learn that it's not overpriced, that next year it's overpriced, or in 2 years it's overpriced. We just don't know. But what I can tell you is you have to make sure when you feel you're paying more than you should, which is today's market, you
Mhm.
have to make sure that there is a value add to the property or to the purchase. Like it's not being used its highest and best use.
Mhm.
Or you can get an extra lot out of it by doing a subdivision,
Mhm.
or you can turn a 1 unit into a 2 unit. If you feel like, well, I still think I'll be okay, it makes it better when you're okay and there's a bonus to it, an
Right.
upside. And that's the important thing in today's market, is that you're looking for that upside.
Right. And I'm very glad that I kind of got into the uh, educating myself about the investment side of real estate before looking to go buy my first home because, kind of to your point, I wanted a couple exit strategies. So, I mean, if the market just tanked right after I bought it, I wanted a house that I could live in for 5, 6, 7 years and be completely fine there, not feeling like I need to move. I wanted something like you said that was a value add. So the home I bought is a 1970s home, definitely outdated. I mean, it still had the intercoms in the walls and it still has wallpaper in every single room. So there's definitely some areas to improve there. But then also, if the market kept climbing and it turned out that, I found another home that I wanted to go live in or another area to where I could either keep this as a rental or sell it for a good profit after the 2 years, then uh, having those different exit strategies kind of gave me the peace of mind to, you know, purchase the property.
You're very smart. The way that you're going about it is exactly the way I went about it when I bought my first home. I think that, too many of us want the niceties off the start. You have to understand, what are your goals. So if you do have goals, if you set goals and you understand where you want to go with it and you strategize it, and, knowing that, hey, I could go out, I may be able to afford a higher mortgage payment, and I could go out and get the more glamorous, have those, great housewarming parties where everybody's going, oh man, this is so nice. Not like, really, like, okay, cool, Andrew. Like, I guess you have vision. You want them to say that, not, oh wow, this is so nice, it's so elaborate, because you want to build the equity. And the way that you do that is exactly like you're talking, taking the wallpaper down, getting rid of the intercoms, upgrading, changing out the kitchen and baths, opening up walls where you can. That's going to put tens of thousands of dollars into your pocket that you didn't have to go to work literally for your job for. You're going to work at it, but you're going to get so much more upside out of it than you'll ever make working by the hour or a salary that, you have to go in and punch a clock 9 to 5. Not saying don't do that,
Mhm.
but if you want to have more, doing what you're doing is the way to do it. It's the most sound way, in my opinion, to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, when I was starting my research, you hear all these different ways that they, you might be able to make money with it, but it's a bit more risky. Like possibly if you're using some private lenders. I mean, that's not something that I feel like I had the experience to where I'm comfortable to, you know, have to finish this house in 90 days and then have to have it appraised at a certain value. So I definitely took a conservative approach with this first one, just because that's kind of how I operate. I like to feel like I know what I'm doing. I'm definitely never in the first couple of people to jump into something. I always take a little bit longer, try and really figure out how to do something before I do it. And that's definitely something that at sometimes it holds me back, because there are times where I kind of just need to go do it and get that experience.
What are you, 23?
22.
22.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, ain't nothing holding you back, man. You already did it. I mean, you're sitting there saying, you're one of those guys that sits back and, look, you jumped in, man. You did it. Hats off to you. I mean, I can't tell you how many 22-year-olds own a home.
Yeah, true.
Let alone know that they want to invest. And, the reason why they bought it, to buy a fixer upper. I mean, you should be proud of yourself. I mean, you're rolling. I mean, you're you're doing what you need to do. You're taking action. Some people think about this for 10 years before they do it. You set it as a priority. That's the bottom line.
It's very easy to see these other people that are 10 or 15 steps ahead of you. And I mean, for you to kind of feel like you're behind, because you see like these extraordinary people on social media, and they're, somehow they're 2 years younger than you, and they've done all these deals and they're doing this and that. But I definitely appreciate, kind words and letting me know that.
Yeah, you're off to a great start. What is it about getting into the sales side of things that is so interesting to you?
Mm-hmm. Well, so that's kind of one thing that I've been trying to figure out is, I don't really see myself as a salesperson. I mean, I've had different jobs where I'm in a sales role, and I don't know. I kind of felt like, maybe I'm sort of being pushy to these people, or, I don't feel like I'm using somebody. But I have felt, I do see myself as a presenter. So when I see, sales in real estate, I mean, to me, that's not really like you're trying to screw someone over and push a product on them. I mean, you're trying to get someone into a home, or also you're trying to get a person or a business into their next commercial property that's going to help their business grow, whether that's like a warehouse or a retail center. So both of those things where it is kind of a sales position, it just feels like something that I would be more accustomed to than, a more traditional sales position where you're selling a product, really.
So what questions do you have pertaining to that?
So I guess a good question would be, how would you decide if you just want to invest in real estate, or if it's something that you should make a career out of it?
So I'll tell you what getting a license meant to me. I can remember when I signed up for real estate school, I did not want to be an agent.
Okay.
I mean, I absolutely did not want to be an agent. That was not the reason. I felt that my agents that were representing me in my flips in my houses, I felt that they were just not very professional. I couldn't get a hold of them. I felt like they weren't following through with the leads, and not just one, but several of them. I was frustrated, especially when it came to buying. I felt like, putting offers in on property, whether it was land or whether it was rehabs, sometimes I would lose out because we wouldn't respond fast enough, during even the negotiations. And so I was so frustrated that I said, I'm going to get my license so that at least I can help myself, if nothing else, at least get the education, right, and the access to the MLS on my own, which you had to really be an agent in order to do. I mean, we didn't have Zillow, but even still with Zillow, you're not looking at a lot of the information, agent to agent information, and commissions, things like that I was interested in, because for me, if I could save a couple percent, that's a big deal, right? Yeah. On a buy. There are benefits of having somebody else sell your product for you because it's a layer of protection between negotiating. But on the buy, it's an instant kind of like savings of a couple percent, 3%, whatever the commission's being offered. So that was the purpose that I wanted to get my license. As I went through the class, I was really interested in it. And I tell people that a lot. I'm like, if you will know when you start reading all this stuff, and a lot of it you don't even apply, it's just stuff you have to know to get your license. But if you can read that and get excited about it, then you're off to a good start. And I got excited about it. I mean, it just was really kind of like eye-opening and learning all these different things. And next thing you know, man, I had a team of 9 agents. And, I mean, I got my license, I went full speed ahead, and then the market crashed. What I would say is it's not bad to get your license. I don't think that you have to decide right away if it's something that you want to quit your job to do.
Right.
It does cost money. It's a couple $1,000s a year by the time you affiliate and get, the MLS and do different things. But it could be a cost that comes back very quickly if you utilize yourself or you help a friend or two buy a house, because the commissions are good. And you're coming on the age right now where your buddies are going to be buying houses. So if nothing else, you can pick up from a part-time basis, help them to buy and even rent. I mean, even helping people rent, you can make commissions on helping people rent houses. If I were advising you on, would it be something that I would leave my job right away on? I probably would say no. I'd keep that income coming in. I would better myself. If you figure, let's say you spend $3,000 a year and 2 years and you don't sell one house, it's $6,000. It's not the end of the world.
Definitely spend that on worse.
Yeah, you're going to spend it on drinking or vacations or whatever, that you decide that you want to go out and do. It's prioritizing. We're back to that again, prioritizing. So is it worth $6,000 or $7,000 to get the education for 2 years, get your license, get access to the MLS, and maybe even sell a couple friends some things and make $50,000 or $60,000,
right?
Instead of costing you $7,000. So I think that, with where your mind is, I think it's a no-brainer.
Okay.
And here's the other thing, you had mentioned about commercial, residential. I'm sure it's the same way in Tennessee. You have to find out. Obviously, I know Maryland. I do know a couple other states that I have buddies of mine that are in, that there's really only one license, at least here. If you have a real estate license, you can sell residential or commercial. It's all up to your broker as to whether they will let you. The brokerage that I was there for, more than a dozen years. They would not let you do both unless you had further education. So you get your real estate license, they will let you do residential.
Okay. Yeah.
But they would not let me do commercial unless I took another set of courses that they offered that made them feel a lot more comfortable about me doing commercial transactions. So I did both, but primarily I was commercial. I didn't actually go out and sell houses to people. I mean, I did a little bit, but not as a full-time career. I focused on the investing side, bettering, myself as an investor, helping other people invest, and then commercial while my agents showed houses on Saturdays, Sundays, and nights during the week.
That's kind of how I feel like I land, where I don't necessarily see myself being, the most, energetic home seller out there, like the agent that's going to go talk to everybody and, talk your ear off and go want to sell a bunch of houses. But I'm kind of more on the same side as you, where I'm kind of interested in the commercial side. It's more based on numbers, and if it makes sense for whatever business or company or individual is buying the property, then I mean they'll know it makes sense by the numbers, not because they like the curb appeal or something like that.
You brought up a very good point, actually. So the biggest difference between residential and commercial is that commercial is a less emotional transaction.
Right.
A residential transaction is very emotionally charged.
Mm-hmm.
A commercial transaction is mostly analytically charged. The numbers have to make sense. Traffic counts have to be there. The demographics have to be there. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons that go into why somebody buys or leases a specific location. In both cases, you're probably going to be self-employed. So that's a big consideration too, that you're going to be, independent. And with that comes a lot of risk because you don't have salaries.
Right.
Unless you go to work for an apartment complex where you're a leasing agent, you're salaried and things like that, you're going to probably be self-employed. So there's a whole lot of risk there. And there's a pay cycle, when you start out, even if you start and you sell something right away, at the very best, you're going to get paid in 30 days. You're not going to get a check tomorrow. And most of the time it's going to take you 5 or 6 months before you get a paycheck, or a commission check.
Yeah.
Depending on whether you're doing residential or commercial. Commercial could take you over a year, 2 years.
That's kind of what I've been seeing. Just like with commercial, just don't really plan to be making any money the first year, and then even once you do start making money, it's probably not going to be very much at first.
Yes. So, which is important, why you keep that job. What I'll say to you though, is that you can take risks now where you are in your life, where you may not be able to do it later. And what I mean by that is when you start having kids, you're getting married, if you're going to have children, it kind of locks you into less risk taking because you have mouths to feed and diapers to buy and things that cost a lot of money. And, so where for me, I was 21 years old when I started my business. I had employees at 21, 22 years old. And I didn't have a wife or kids. So if I fell on my face, the only one I was really affecting was myself and my landlord. So the more responsibility that you get, the harder it is to break free from a paying job and start a non-paying job.
So kind of going back to commercial real estate, I mean, there's tons of information out there about investing in commercial real estate, and then there's tons of information out there about becoming a residential real estate agent. But when it comes to becoming a commercial real estate agent, I feel like there's like a lot of mystery with that. It seems like, you have your residential agents that they want to go try commercial, but, a lot of them don't make it because they just don't understand the different complexities that come with that. They don't understand like the product categories that they're trying to sell. So it kind of just seems like there's all these barriers to getting into selling commercial real estate. So I'd like to hear a little more about how it was for you going from, selling a couple homes, even though, like you said, that wasn't your main goal, to getting into selling commercial real estate.
With commercial real estate, one of the things you have to realize, and commercial is kind of broken down into different categories. So, commercial could be serving residential investors. That could be a way of looking at commercial real estate, because typically anything over 4 units is considered commercial when you're getting into multifamily. So you could be working in the multifamily space, or you can pick different sectors that are, more specialized, like retail or hospitality or warehousing, flex space, office space. So you could be specialized, or you could be diversified across those different, sectors. But one of the things that you have to realize when you're in commercial real estate is that you're probably if you're dealing with a lot of end users or owner occupants that are going to put their business in that real estate, you have to understand that they're running a business and they're busy. So a lot of times what happens is they're not looking for property. So if you just put yourself in a mindset of somebody who's running a business and they're leasing, and let's say the space isn't right for them, a lot of times they don't move because they're busy getting up every single day. They're running their business and they're tired at night. They go to bed, and they, in the back of their mind, every now and then they go, yeah, this space really isn't working for me. I need a smaller space, or I need a bigger space, or I need to be in a different location because we're not being served, our communities, our customer base isn't close to us, or we're not convenient, or they're on the wrong side of the road, and what happens is they're working, and then all of a sudden their lease renewal comes up and they just sign it again or just let it roll because they haven't had time to find anything else. Mm-hmm. So within that mindset, if you understand the business owner mindset, there comes the opportunity. Because for me, it was easy to get into that space because I understood what it was like to be self-employed. So I wasn't waiting around for the phone to ring. I was going around, knocking on doors, meeting the local business owners and saying, hey, how's it going, man? How's the space working for you? I'm a local commercial real estate agent around here. This is my area I run. I just want to know what you do, who you are, and just kind of be able to refer business to you. Hey, you're a dog groomer. I want to be able to tell people to come and see you. Just establishing those relationships where they would take that 5 or 10 minutes and go, yeah, geez, well, find me a better place or this or that. Or they would say things to me that would be like, oh, okay, yeah, now I'm off and running. The residential aspect of it, a lot of it is they find their own place. So, there's a lot of questions like, what the heck do I need an agent for? I'm finding my own place anyway. And I hear a lot of frustration amongst buyers because they're on Zillow or Truly at 2 o'clock in the morning going, I need a place. I need a house. I want to find it. Most of them are just stuck and they call up an agent like, I don't know what to do next. I found this house that I want to see. Can you show it to me? Mm-hmm. Right. So the difference really, they're polar opposites in the operational aspect of it. So it's very difficult to do both. To be successful, you have to pick what it is that you want to do. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying that it's not valuable being a residential agent. We work very hard on the residential side. I have agents, residential agents, man, they kill it, man. I mean, they're hustlers, man. They go out and they bust their backsides 7 days a week, nights and weekends, and securing deals. But I'm talking about the mindset of the client, right? Two different mindsets. So when you're setting up your business, you have to know, what mindset am I going after? Do I want to work nights and week? I mean, if you're self-employed, you're going to work all the time anyway. But when do you want to be on duty? Right. Because sitting in your home, working on your computer, relaxed, drinking a glass of wine or a beer, chilling out while you're killing it, still getting it done, is different than being in your car and driving all over the place looking at properties. So when you're residential, you're on duty nights and weekends. Mm-hmm. Every night and every weekend. You have to establish, is that where I want to live? Is that my lifestyle that I want to have with a family? And people go, yeah, but you can pick your own hours. That's crap, man. If you're going to bust it and you're going to get in and get it done, you're going to work the hours. You're going to be like, honey, I got to go, man. I got to show this house tonight. I got to show 3 more houses tonight. Somebody, their phone's going to ring. Hey, Saturday morning. It's like, oh man, I really wanted to go fishing Saturday morning, but I really like to have a $15,000 commission check. So yeah, I'll be there Saturday morning. Right. When you're in commercial, you're dealing with business owners. And a lot of times they don't work weekends and nights. It's a lot more tolerable, even though you'll be working weekends and nights, you'll be doing a different thing. Like I said, drinking a beer on the computer. So it's a different clientele base, right? Mm-hmm. But it's very important if you're going to go into commercial real estate that you know what the heck you're doing with financial analysis and market analysis, because you have to understand where there are gaps for their business, where the opportunities are, how much business is leaving, what's the 1 mile, 3 mile, 5 mile drive radius or minute drive time, how far will somebody go to get a hamburger? You got to know things like that.
I guess a lot of the stuff that you need to know for commercial, you're not going to pick up just in getting your regular old real estate license.
Your regular real estate license is going to teach you about land use. Mm-hmm. It's going to give you an overview of surveying, what that means, title, what is that? Mm-hmm. How do people title things? Financing, what are the different types of financing? You're going to dive into these things very deep, as deep as you can in a short course. but it's going to give you a whole nother set of textbooks that you can dive much further into. Your question was, how do you get into it? Because it's like the old man's club, right? Historically, commercial real estate has been primarily a man's market. I love the fact that more women are entering into the space now more than ever. But commercial real estate, when I used to go to these big conferences, were all men. Now there are a lot of women, and they don't really share knowledge with you. And, and that's the way a lot in the industry, they don't share industry tips. There is a very expensive resource for you that you can sign up for. And whether you go for a designation, whether you're a licensee or not, you can just be an investor. You're going to pay a little bit more for the course if you don't join a membership, but it's called CCIM. You should take note to that, CCIM. You can go right to Google, put in CCIM. It's Certified Commercial Investment Member is the acronym. CCIM is all about commercial real estate. Okay. It is a designation that is where the top elite commercial agents go for. Another one is SIOR. But CCIM is going to be the best for a large overview in the commercial industry. There's a couple modules, starts out with an introduction. I think it's 101, 102, 103, and 104 are the modules that you go through. You can do them online, and very good education. You have to pay attention. It's not something that you can cheat. It's robust, man. I mean, you're really diving into, the commercial aspect of your internal rate of return, your cash on cash. I mean, it's, cap rates, how do they calculate all of this stuff, the financial aspect, the market aspect of it, GIS. You probably know a lot about GIS or learned a bunch of it in school. So, being able to do those overlays, and you have a whole plethora of tools too when you become a CCIM candidate, which is basically you join a membership at I think it's like $1,000 a year to join, and then you pay for these courses that are expensive. But you get this whole market tool set, from everything from the GIS to, databases of businesses and places where you can actually start to mine for clients. And then the big one is CoStar. So on the MLS, CoStar is the commercial MLS. And if you want to look at what you can see without a membership, about 30% of what is on CoStar. So CoStar is much bigger, but it's reserved for licensees, agents. You can look at LoopNet if you've never done that before. Have you ever been on LoopNet? Yep. So LoopNet is a consumer-facing, like a retail platform that you can go on and look at commercial investment properties.
But I'm sure, so it's not like near as intensive as CoStar is?
It's about a third. It's about a third of what you're going to find in available properties. And CoStar is going to have all of the back end stuff too, the reporting and the competitive market analysis, and to be able to find out what the, market rents or square foot pricing, things like that are, in a specific market and even sub-market. I mean, it's pretty robust itself.
So if you were to go down the path of get your real estate license, and then, you join one of these groups where you get this information about commercial, how soon and how important do you think it would be to really drill down as to what your specialty is going to be within the, broad realm of commercial real estate?
I think it's going to happen. A lot of it's going to happen naturally. If you're interested in what it is that you're doing, I think that the selection will come pretty naturally. But I will say, don't let a specialty define what you will do, because your knowledge base of what you can do will be there. So you might say, hey, I'm going to specialize in office space, But hey, if I get a client that wants retail space, I'm going to help them.
Sure.
If I have a client that wants, hospitality, I'm going to help them. But my niche is office. It's where I kind of find most of my, clients are office clientele. So I think that would be like having residential, but only wanting to sell detached houses and not townhouses or condos. I mean, you may specialize in being a listing agent, but that doesn't mean that you won't help buyers too. Yeah, I would say, how far down that line, I think it'd be a natural progression, and you're going to go for lowest lying fruit. And that also may be dictated on the market. So, and I'll give you an example. We just go through COVID right now. Would restaurants, be a great place to hang out, try and help restaurants open or find expansion or, other locations? That'd be a scary space. If you were strictly restaurants, you would be struggling right now, right? Same way with office space, but warehousing space is killing it with the various, demands on warehousing, with everything from home deliveries to marijuana, right? Dispensaries, driving those, industrial markets, really high. The desire for these spaces really high, and that's like a great space to be in right now. So a lot of that is going to change based on where we are in the economy.
So I guess like a big kind of more general question that kind of wraps a lot of this up is, one thing that I feel like I struggle with is you see all these different things that you can be doing in real estate. So like one day I'll see someone who's just killing it with Airbnbs, and they have this big portfolio and they're making, lots of good money from that. And then you'll see someone who, all they're doing is multifamily, and then they're starting to do syndications of apartment buildings. And then you see someone who goes and they buy a bunch of self-storage units. And it's kind of like there's all these different things. Like, what advice do you have for finding something and kind of just honing in on that and focusing on that?
I think one is you have to make a plan. You have to goal set. And part of goal setting is understanding what kind of lifestyle goes with each one of these different possibilities. So if you're going to Airbnb, in order to do it effectively, you're probably going to want to live in an area where Airbnb is hot. You live in Nashville, Tennessee, so that is hot.
Yeah.
Because in order to make the most you can with Airbnb is you have to self-manage them. Because if you're going to give 20% of your money away to a management company, you may not be profitable as you need to be to make it worth doing.
Sure.
Where, your money may be better off with a long-term rental where you don't really need to do anything if you have a good tenant.
Sure.
So I think by looking at each one of these that you had mentioned, large apartment syndication probably isn't even a consideration really, because, you need to get up to that point to where, you can either you're going to invest with somebody else who's an operator, but if you want to be an operator yourself, that's probably a goal down the road so I would take that off the table. Then you would be looking at, are you going to get your license, and what amount of time are you willing to put into that? So goal setting would be, what will each one of these things require? So if you make being a licensee one of them, flipping something else, single family rentals, something else, multifamily rentals, something else. And then, Airbnb, maybe you would take those different aspects and sort of write down what the requirements are for each one of those to work, and kind of make a list. One, how much time is it going to take? Do I have the time? How much money is it going to take? Do I have the money or the resources to get it? What's it going to make me? What's the upside of doing it? So, and you want to start out with something that's very palatable, that's achievable, because then you got to get into even the price of it, like where's my comfort level in investment? Is it 200,000? Is it 400,000 to buy something? And then what am I going to make on that? So, to make it worthwhile, because time is money. So you have to realize, what is it that I have the potential to make? And when you're looking at residential, I can tell you for me, residential property, I have a 1% rule. So if I buy a property for $250,000, I need to be able to rent it for $2,500 a month.
Mm-hmm.
That's not always practical, especially in Nashville.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You spend, you get a house that you buy for $400,000. Can you rent it for $4,000 a month?
I mean, I would say no, unless you're like downtown.
Yeah, right. Probably not. So what does that do? That tells you if you want a single family house, you need to go out of downtown Nashville. Now, what does that mean? That means you have to drive, or you're going to put distance in there. It's not going to be right next door. Mm-hmm. So you may have to go to Hendersonville, and look at something that's $170,000 that you could rent for $1,700 a month. Mm-hmm. So you have to, first establish, where can you make money? Where do the numbers work in each one of these? So you have to explore each one of these individually. Same thing with Airbnb. So when I'm looking at the 1% rule, usually that's the safest way for me to quickly assess a property. Mm-hmm. It's the quick and down and dirty. Okay, this is move-in ready. Yeah, it's $174,000. I can rent it for $1,750 a month. Boom, I'm going to buy it, right? I'm moving forward. It's easy for me.
You don't need to, dig all into the deep analysis on something that right off the bat won't work.
Not right off the bat, because the numbers historically are going to work, right? Now, if something major is an offset, and this is where you have to know, and now if it's distressed at 174,000 and you need 100,000 in it, you're at 274, you may not get your 1%. So, the simplistic way is it's turnkey, it's ready to go. I can buy it, I can market rents, support it. I'm going to do it, right? That's the easy one. Where you get into the market analysis is, now this needs work. Sure. Now I have to know what my renovation costs are going to be. So that's more complex. So on the simple side of things, let's say you want to do single family rentals or townhouse rentals or condo rentals. You can make it as simple as, I'm looking for turnkey stuff, the 1% rule, bring me all you got, or that's what I'm researching. I don't care about the fancy luxury kitchens and baths. Mm-hmm. And I don't care about any of that. If it's clean, dated, priced right, and I can get market rents for it, that's the simple way. Once you start diving into the other aspects of it, then you do need more market analysis and a team to be able to get your pricing of what things are going to cost. So the easiest thing is turnkey rentals.
Yep.
That's the simplest thing. Turnkey long-term rentals, or, turnkey short-term rentals. It's going to be the easiest thing that you can do while you have a job and you have money. They're two resources that make it a lot easier if you find the right deal to buy, and start a portfolio that way. Or you could take a simple strategy. As soon as we're done this house, I'm going to turn it into a rental and I'm going to go buy another one. And I'm going to use my lease as collateral on this thing so that the bank can see, hey, look, it's paying for itself. I've got a tenant. I got a 1-year lease and I can afford it. My job says I can buy another house. Go buy another house. And that could be a way of doing it. Buy another fixer upper, same thing over again. You could do one of those a year if you wanted to, and just keep growing into it and live through the construction phase. That's a great strategy.
So at that point, you're kind of sticking with like your more traditional career path, but then, you're doing things that they don't take up so much time that you can still do both.
And the big thing is understand you're 22.
Yep.
All right. Let's say you bought a house a year for the next 5 years. You'd be 27 years old with 5 houses, probably $2 million worth of assets. And then over the next 5 years, you could quadruple that every year if you so choose to do so. Mm-hmm. Right. But you would have such a strong, stable foundation and confidence. And then you would be able to get the money. You could get investors. So if you set up for yourself and you said, look, I'm going to spend the next 5 years buying a house a year. Mm-hmm. And that's a great goal, right? If you did that, you'd be off and running. watch these Instagram videos and things, and people are like, oh yeah, I just bought 10 houses last week. Some of it may be true, but a lot of it, you can't get caught up in what these people are saying that they're doing, right? Because, a lot of it might not be so. They may not be as successful as they're saying that they are. You have to be confident of your path.
Right.
You strategize, focus on your path, listen to what everybody's doing that will help you with what you're doing. Don't get down those paths that take your eye off the ball. I have a saying, when you get out of your game and get in someone else's game, you become fair game, right? So when you think, oh, they're killing it over here, I want a piece of that. You can make money in anything. Just be good at what you want to do. That's the most important thing, but just understand what your goals are, and strategize them, and don't stop.
Right.
Don't let a little bit of sidetrack, take you out, because you're going to have, things go wrong. You're going to find things you weren't planning on. It's all part of anything. It's part of having a job. You get a job, you apply for a job, you get hired, and you think it's great, and you get in and you find out it's not so great. Or maybe there's an aspect of it that's not so great. So you have to navigate around that and still do your job. So it's the same thing. You're going to buy that property where you go, man, that sucks. I wish I hadn't bought this property. Well, guess what? You did. Now deal with it. Figure out what you're going to do next. You're going to keep it or you're going to get rid of it. It's that simple, right? So keep it in perspective, keep moving forward, and, learn from the mistake.
Really good advice with kind of just, you need to focus on that one path, because if you do that and you do it well, then later on you can always go into different things. Like, for example, with you, you have your own brokerage, and then you're doing your investing, and then you're doing development. And now, you have your podcast, and it seems like all these different things, but that's not because you're focusing on all these different things at once. It's because you're taking a single path and really giving one thing, like all your effort at one time. The one of the really intriguing things about real estate is, no matter where we are in the cycle, there's ways that you can make money in real estate, whether you're flipping or whether you're just kind of playing it safe and holding on to a long-term rental when people really need housing. I'm sure it's not hard for you to get tenants right now, just because everyone needs, everyone that can't find a house to buy is renting. So
a lot of people say, well, it's a tough market right now because the prices are going up. What happens when the market's going down? So what happens is this: people have a tendency to have analysis paralysis, or just excuses in general. They have an excuse for everything. They have an excuse, well, I can't get in the market now because of this, or I can't do this now. I can't make a decision now because of that. You can buy in any market, right? So let me just explain this a little bit. Imagine, so we're in an up market, right? We're going up. Prices tomorrow are more expensive than today. Building costs are going up. So if you think about that, you go, well, I better buy now. Because if I don't buy now, tomorrow I have to pay more. Or in 3 months, I have to pay more. Or you could sit around and go, well, the market may crash. And then next year you go, well, boy, I wish I would have bought last year because the market didn't crash. And now it's 30% more than it was last year. And I should have bought last year, right? Well, what would make you feel better? Well, some people might say, well, it would make me feel a lot better if the market was going down. All right. Well, let's play that scenario. So the market's going down. That means if you buy it today, tomorrow it would be worth less. When do you buy? Oh my gosh. Should I buy it now, or should I wait till tomorrow? Or should I buy it in 3 weeks? Because in 3 weeks it might be less. So you see what I'm getting at here? So, when people say, well, when do I buy? Well, what do you mean, when do you buy? You buy when it makes sense, when the numbers make sense, when the deal makes sense. You can find good deals and bad deals in any market, right? You could buy it in a down market and then say, well, I should have waited another month because I could have bought this thing for $30,000 less.
Mm-hmm.
It's no different if you bought it today and it all of a sudden goes down the other way.
Mm-hmm.
That is what it is. So it's a lot harder to make the decision on what to do if you don't set up those parameters.
Sure.
Right? So you say, what is it that I'm looking for? Well, this house that I'm in worked pretty good. I got it for $160,000. I was comfortable with the payment. I was comfortable with the workload. So if I could find another house for $160,000, it's like this one, I'll buy it.
Mm-hmm.
When you're ready to buy, you look for it. And when you find it, you buy it.
Yep.
You follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You set up what your criteria is for, man. And when you find it, you pull the trigger and buy it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't sit there and go, well, if I wait, or if I do this, or if I do that, then it passes you by, and you have that, analysis paralysis, and you just don't advance.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think the biggest push forward with my interest in real estate was finally, getting the home and getting it under contract and going through that whole process. I feel like that added a bunch of confidence to, go buy the next property whenever I had the funds ready for it.
You were nervous at first, but guess what? You're not nervous anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So you've elevated that bar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now you're a lot more confident. Mm-hmm. So now when you go into the next one, you're going to be looking for the things that you missed, document, hey, I wish I would have paid more attention to this. Most people go in a house, man, you spend 15 minutes and you put an offer on it. And then maybe you have an inspection and you spend another hour and a half. You're going to live in this thing. You're going to get in there and be like, wow, I didn't see this, man. Oh my gosh, how did I miss this?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what are you going to do in the next one? You might hang out for a little bit longer.
Yep.
You might go a little bit slower. You might actually count the windows. You might look at the windows. Right?
Yeah.
So, it's all experience. As you grow that, as you get better at that, it's going to be something that you won't forget.
Right. All right. Well, I'll just have one last question to wrap this up. But what would you say has attributed the most to your success in real estate?
When you're buying properties, you're self-employed. From an investor standpoint, you're putting yourself out there with risk. When you're entering risk with whatever it is that you're doing, I think the ability to understand the risk and be able to mitigate the risks as a skill, analyze it and, set up the plans to mitigate it if things don't work out the way that you hope that they do. I think that has attributed the most to my success. So when I analyze my risks and I break it down, with my what if scenarios, if I'm not comfortable with it, I'm going to say no. So being able to, analyze it, say no. And if I say yes, then I'm going for it full speed ahead. I'm not second guessing myself. And you can stay in a safety net, man, your whole life. And a lot of people do. And that's okay. I mean, you know what? I would never judge anybody based on what they decide they're willing to risk and whether they have thick enough skin or that they can still sleep at night based on the pressures that are on them. And I've been very good at understanding that and navigating through it. It's not for everybody. Some people should not be entrepreneurs. Some people shouldn't. They should stay in the safety net. They should, because they won't be at peace no matter what. They won't even be able to enjoy the success.
But it's good that you got started off as young as you did with your business, because, and like you said, once you start having kids, your tolerance for risk definitely cuts down. And, I haven't really grown up with any real entrepreneurial people in my life. So even just kind of, dipping my toe in the water into this definitely feels foreign to me. Um, and like I said earlier, like I'm very like slow to act on anything. I'm not, there's been a couple times where I probably just need to go do something, and I'm sitting around, researching it a little bit more. But like, well, how can I exactly do this? When maybe the answer is just go do it and see what outcomes you get. But I would very much appreciate, continuing to stay in touch with you.
Absolutely, man. You reach out anytime. You have my cell phone now, shoot me a text, call me up, whatever. And, and I'd be glad to help you analyze the deal too. I mean, if you're at a point where you think, hey, look, you check this out, to kind of, help you out along the way. We can help each other. I think that, we'll definitely stay in touch and, stay safe out there, man. And let's keep in touch.
Sounds good.
Yeah, okay, buddy. Thank you.
Sachs Realty, Maryland broker number 607720, office number 443-318-4514, equal housing opportunity.